Anime. Anime is much like regular television if you ask me. If you're looking for garbage, you'll find it. If you're looking for something average, you'll find it. If you're looking for something good, you'll find it. And if you're looking for something that's so epic that makes you go,
yeah, that's the shit right there,
then you'll find it. Today I'm talking about the Fate series, one of the weirdest anime franchises that's currently around. This is the first time on my channel I'm openly talking about something that's not part of the niche thing I cover, so I'm a bit nervous of how well this video is gonna do. But even if you know nothing about Fate, stick around, cause this video is gonna be sort of an introduction and also poking fun of some of the ridiculous / funny aspects of the franchise. So first I'm gonna start with a small introduction as to what the Fate franchise is all about. Well, picture George Washington, Shakespeare, King Arthur, Alexander the Great, and a variety of other historical figures, and now picture them being summoned into the modern times and fighting each other for a cup. Yes, a magical wishing cup, which is totally not a rip-up of the Dragon Balls. But in all seriousness, I actually really like this concept. Seeing how each one of the Fate series brings up different heroes from different points in human history and kinda interweaves a narrative around them and their personalities is surprisingly good, most of the time at least. The whole thing is basically a battle royale. Usually what the Fate series is all about is that we usually follow a master who's teamed up with a servant, and the servant is basically a figure from history. They could be someone righteous and noble like, let's say, King Arthur, or they can be someone evil and devious like Vlad the Impaler. So the pair basically needs to work together to obtain the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is like this magical wishing artifact which grants the master and his servant each a wish. It can be pretty much anything they want, most of the time. Different Fate series and continuities change this sometimes, in which the goal is not to obtain the Holy Grail or is something a bit different than that, but the concept is for the most part consistent all across the different Fate series. It's usually a master and a servant fighting other 7 masters and servants with the intended desire to obtain the Holy Grail. Of course, there's a lot of backstabbing, alliances, philosophical debates, tragedy, romance. Like, you get the idea. It's very Game of Thrones-esque in its premise and its execution most of the time. So before I start making like explain videos in regards to Fate or any other anime franchise, I think it will be fun if we start small with an introduction to the series, what it's all about, and some of the ridiculous aspects. Because, well, the Fate series has some interesting interpretations. In one series, it's like full-on depression, like epic large-scale battles, treachery, deceit, intense philosophical debates, and it's like super cool and super epic. Really guys, go watch Fate Zero, it's super amazing. And on the other hand, we also have series which they range from being average to being parodic. No, I'm not serious. We have parody series of Fate. They're actually quite funny, but sometimes they're really hard to take seriously, like the Magical Girl spin-off. Oh my god, don't get me started on that. So with a wider range of heroic spirits, that's what the servants basically are, that can be summoned to fight for the Holy Grail, there's bound to be a few historical figures that are, for lack of a better term, genderbend. Now what is genderbending? Genderbending is when you take a certain character from something or like fiction or whatever, and you switch it to be a girl. This is actually quite popular on DeviantArt. For example, when you think of King Arthur, you might be thinking of this. Well, for the Fate series, King Arthur is actually this, which at the beginning it might look like a feminist's wet dream, but it's actually handled in a pretty good way, like I'm not gonna lie. Something that Fate does every once in a while is that it changes the gender of some characters, mostly male characters, into female ones because it's more marketable that way, and honestly I can't really blame them because sometimes this works extremely well. We have well written and extremely interesting female characters. I think Saber in Fate Zero is probably like one of the best female characters I ever like seen in fiction. She's just a really strong character, and not in terms that she's just powerful, but in terms that her character and like her motives are like really interesting to study. But at the same time, it's just the character design which looks good. And other times it's like, oh my god, why do you did that? Like, not all the time the gender bending is good because sometimes it conflicts with like the known story of a certain figure. For example, you guys might know the story of, King Arthur, the real one, not the anime one. Pulls the sword from the stone, Then his best mate cheats on his wife, he has a kid with his sister. Oh my god, that actually happened. The kid's like a freak of nature, he grows up really quickly, he starts a rebellion, King Arthur dies, and Excalibur is thrown back to the ocean. Now in the Fate series, the way it works is that King Arthur was always a female and she just hid her gender because, you know, back then females weren't allowed to, you know, have positions of power. Reeve. Changing her gender also means changing aspects of her story so they make sense and are more in line with, you know, known history. Artoria, that's her name by the way, gets married to a female, but it's like a political marriage and stuff, so it's like fine. But also since she can't have children with another woman, at least not yet, her mentor, Merlin, who is a wizard, basically gives her a male body part. Let's just leave it at that. So she can have a kid with her wife. Trust me, if you think this is weird, it gets weirder. Like sometimes the gender bending works and it's like, it's a simple, you know, oh, this character just hid her gender and history portrayed this character as being a male. And other times, like the backstory gets changed and convoluted for the worse. Like, I like Saber as a character and she doesn't have a male part anymore. By the way, as you say, it was temporary. Like, the creators made sure to make that obvious. Well, Saber is a great character in Zero and everything, and I like how she acts whenever we see her in the series. When we go into her backstory and like things that are, you know, more inclined with, you know, real world history, things become weird, contrived, strange. This isn't always the case, but it's sometimes the case. This also sometimes causes other historical figures to be gender bent, especially those that are in relation to the historical figure being, you know, gender bent. For example, Artoria over here, who's King Arthur, was gender bent into a female. So since she was also changed, other characters around her were also changed, like her son, Mordred, who was born a female instead of a male. Or even some of her allies around her, like Garrett. And the gender bending of Saber also brings up some really weird choice in pronouns. For example, whenever they refer to Saber, they don't refer to her as queen, they refer to her as king. And they refer to her daughter as the king's son, because, you know, the title and stuff. It's all very weird. So you see why the gender bending thing can either be a good thing in Fate or it can be a bad thing. Sometimes it gives more depth to a character, or it enhances their story, or changes some things and makes them a bit more interesting, and other times it makes things a little worse, to be honest. We had a few gender bends here and there, and some of them actually gave us some pretty cool looking characters. Others were kind of just there because, you know, because having a big titty anime girl attracts a lot of attention. And this is true for non-anime stuff, and you know it. Of course, while gender bending is used to change a certain historical figure's backstory and stuff, sometimes it's actually done in a pretty interesting way. In the Fate series, you can summon historical figures like, you know, George Washington, Shakespeare, for some reason, and Napoleon, because they were, you know, figures that actually existed and are of course given, you know, really crazy exaggerated anime powers based around concepts around their legend. But other times, servants can also be fictional. For example, a character that never existed, that's just a legend or stuff, and there was never any concrete, you know, guy behind the legend. For example, Robin Hood. In Fate, there's actually several different versions of Robin Hood. There's like a Robin Hood that's, you know, the guy with the green cape and all and just goes around the forest. There are other Robin Hoods inspired by other parts of the legend. Or even my favorite would be Jack the Ripper. There's actually multiple Jack the Rippers. There's a Jack the Ripper that's based on the legend of him being a demon, another one which is Genderbend, based on the legend of Jack the Ripper being a child that was thrown down the river and then came back for revenge, or characters that are summoned based around concepts or things that that historical figure did, like Leonardo da Vinci, who's clearly inspired by the Mona Lisa, while having some of da Vinci's intellect. I actually don't mind this approach because it means we can have the male versions and the female versions, but Fate gets around this by sometimes having alternate universe servants. For example, in one universe, Saber is a female, in another universe, Saber is actually a male, like, you know, like legend says. Same with other characters like Miyamoto Musashi, who in real life historical fiction was actually a male samurai. But in Fate, the Holy Grail can sometimes summon a servant from another universe. A universe where Miyamoto Musashi was actually a female. So it's a pretty good way to get around it. While for the most part I like the gender bending that happens in Fate, sometimes it gets a bit too excessive. There are certain characters that I kinda don't like being based around historical figures. For example, like Attila the Hun. Like, I don't know what is it about it, but I just don't really like the fact that this, you know, big muscular warlord is not like this skinny, you know, scantily clad waifu, which is like, man, I don't know if I like that one. The point is, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. I think what's funny about the gender bending is that the Fate series tries for the most part to stay aligned with real world historical fiction by changing some details or making some even more complicated. Like, previously I mentioned that Saber had a wife for political reasons and then she was given a you know what so she can have a kid, and she's also referred to as king and, you know, her son. And you see what it does to me? It makes things weird. It's like, just call Mordred your daughter. Like, don't call her son or something like that. And don't refer to yourself as the king's son. Like, refer to yourself as the king's daughter. That makes at least more sense. Like, if you thought modern pronouns were complicated, Fate kinda takes it to a whole new level sometimes. But thankfully this is kept to a minimum and it's really not a core part of the main Fate series that you watch. Like in Fate Zero, like Saber still refers to herself as King of Britain, which it can be a bit off-putting sometimes, but at the same time it's like, it's kept to a minimum and, you know, she doesn't go around calling herself he or him. Like, she's really well aware that she's a female, she's just referring to her title. Another character I want to bring up is Frankenstein. Yes, this is Frankenstein, who was, you know, genderbend to be a female. Now, this is actually one of the ones that I sort of do like, and not because I like her design or anything, it's because Frankenstein is obviously fictional, it's not real, but the person who made it was a female, so this is taken for that aspect of the legend. You know, the author of the story was a female, so Frankenstein here, it's like sort of taken after her author, so I'm like, you know what, that kind of makes sense. I'm actually sort of okay with that. Even though you could have easily made this be, you know, Frankenstein's, you know, female counterpart, because in the actual story there is a female Frankenstein. Well, or there was supposed to be one at least. Also, for all the weirdos who keep, you know, sexualizing her, you do realize she's made out of corpses, right? But yeah, in total there's about 29 historical figures that have been genderbend. Now, some of those are like different variations of an already genderbend historical figure. For example, amongst the 29, there are King Arthur, which I mentioned, and then there's like 3 other different versions of King Arthur, but are actually different versions of, you know, the genderbend King Arthur. So in actuality, there's only 20 historical figures that have been genderbend to like become a female in the series. And if you're a history buff like me, you might think the idea of it being sort of disrespectful or whatever, but honestly, for the most part, it's handled in a really good way. Like, it sometimes depends on the series you watch, but for the most part, it's actually handled in a pretty good way. Like, a lot of the characters here are interesting in their own right, they don't lose any of their coolness factor, and some of them I think are better off for it. But of course, there's some that get a bit that are too excessive, like Rider Uchiwa Kamaru. Hopefully I said that right, but I probably butchered that. Who's a rider class servant. Looking at her design, it's... yeah. I recently watched the Fate Babylonia anime, and in that series, like, her clothes defy gravity somehow. I don't know how she does it, but it's probably the Grail. Whenever something weird happens, you just blame it on the Grail. Saber being a female, blame it on the Grail. The clouds falling from the sky, blame it on the Grail. Artorias having a blame it on the Grail. But yeah, starting with Saber in the original Fate Stay Night visual novel, there has been a common trend in the Fate franchise to making legendary male figures into female heroic spirits. Like, of course there's gonna be those gender bends that kind of, you know, bother some people, but for the most part people seem to like these because, you know, they're handled in a pretty good way. Like, as much as I don't like the fact that the Fed Roman Emperor Nero Claudius, and by the way, let me show you, I'ma Google Nero Claudius, Fed Roman Emperor, taken over by the... oh my god, we're gonna go up. It's not safe for work stuff. No, oh my god. As much as I don't like certain gender bends like Attila the Hun, the Fed Roman Emperor, I have to admit that they're all much better characters than Rey from Star Wars. They're not Mary Sue, they struggle, they actually have some difficulties in fighting their opponents, their backstories are often tragic, mostly because real world history is pretty tragic overall, so yeah. It's kinda funny how anime can sometimes be more progressive and still be fun and entertaining than current Western media portrayals of women. amusement and, you know, entertainment. And in a way, that's just sad. But anyways guys, before we go, shout out to our patrons Morise Prime, Mateo, Mario Gordon, Christopher Prime, and the absolute madman himself, Jordan the Great, who donated $100. Thank you guys for donating, it's much appreciated. And if you guys want to donate to my Patreon, links in the description down below and in the comments down below. By donating to my Patreon, you get access to some of my videos early. You can request your own videos, you receive a shout out at the end of my videos, you can participate in some of my videos if you so choose, and you get a few previews of some of my new works that are currently in development. There are plenty of rewards that you get as a result of becoming one of my patrons, and I do plan to adding a few more in the future as time goes on and the patrons grow, but keep in mind that donating is entirely optional, because freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Thank you to my patrons for donating, it's much appreciated. And if you guys want to donate, you know what to do. So yeah, thanks a lot guys. But yeah guys, I have no idea what I was trying to accomplish with this video. It was just a fun introduction, you know, making fun of some of the ridiculous aspects of the Fate universe. And as much as I do like the series, there are plenty of stuff to make fun of here and there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed this introduction to the Fate universe. I might make a few more Fate videos here and there, but I also want to move on to other things like Star Wars and like maybe some other anime series. Maybe I'll start talking about The Mandalorian since it's something I actually really like from modern Star Wars. We'll see. I'm still gonna do regular Transformers videos because, you know, that's my niche and that's the stuff that, you know, a lot of you guys enjoy. But I also want to talk about some of my other interests, so hopefully this was a fun, awkward, like interesting little, you know, historical lecture on the changes of a fictional anime series on real world historical fiction. Oh my god. So today I didn't do a my brother couldn't be here today joke, and the reason why I did that is because since this is a new video talking about anime and I might get some people who, you know, haven't seen my channel up until this point, I kinda wanted to start clean and not make a joke that some people will not understand. But in case you're new here, every time I start a video, well, most of the time, I do a joke why my brother couldn't be here today. It could be something like, oh, he had school today, or like, he had massive diarrhea, or sometimes it could be something ridiculous like he burned his hands on cold water. And I always take, suggestions from my subscribers, and I do that at the beginning of my videos, but this time I decided to skip that. What I'm not skipping today is fan art of the day, and that's pretty self-explanatory. So today's fan art comes from Cabin, KBN, Cabin. People are gonna get mad at me, much like the last video I did where I pronounced no, Janal, and a lot of people got triggered because of that. So yeah, I say he made, but he actually found an old drawing of his and he shared it with us. And it looks really good, like I actually really like it a lot. If you guys have, you know, fan art that you guys want to submit, it could be, you know, Transformers related, it could be non-Transformers related, just submit it to me through my Discord DMs. I'm always checking and I'm almost always on. So, you know, it's the best way to get them submitted to me. So, yeah. Thank you, Kevin, for your drawing. Anyways, guys, that's it for this video. Hopefully, y'all enjoy. Not sure how this is gonna be received, but hopefully it gets received well. So yeah, but hopefully you guys like it. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay safe, guys.